Our next session, I mentioned at the very beginning that we're going to have Ampler, Silver Chain and Australian Unity, each discussing a variation on hospital in the home, because I'm very keen for everybody in the audience to be fully aware of what those services are. So I've asked Emma Cornwell, Executive General Manager, Health Services from Australian Unity, and Bev Smith, Chief Commercial Officer of Ampler, to come and join us. And each of them is going to speak for about 5 to 7 minutes on their individuals, and then we're going to have a conversation. So if I can invite them to the podium, and I think Emma is going first.
Thank you, Chris, and organisers for the opportunity to share a bit of our ambition and what we've been working on over the last 18 months. I would like to begin today by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet today, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and also extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here with us today. Last year, for those of you who were here, Prue Bowden, Australian Unity's Home Health CEO, spoke of our ambition to disrupt long-held beliefs and traditional models in aged and healthcare in this country. Because in the words of our Group Managing Director, which many of you may have seen in the AFR and Chris referenced this morning, we are in a crisis of bed block, ambulance ramping, an absence of aged care beds, and looking into a future where there will be more than 60,000 people aged 80 and over for the next 20 years. We in Home Health are facing into this demography shift with bold thinking, prepared to disrupt limiting beliefs to meet this demand at scale and in a way that better meets the needs and preferences of customers. So let's focus on the why. Integrated healthcare is critical for people like Joe. Joe has just turned 100 years old and he still lives at home. He is lucky. When Joe was 97, he had his family advocate for his return home post-surgery, and it was a pretty serious surgery. He had an integrated care plan that included his GP, his rehab team, a registered nurse, personal carers and domestic assistants. Despite his age, frailty and complex needs, and because of our commitment to integrated healthcare, Joe is not deteriorating in hospital waiting for a residential aged care bed. His story is not the same as Cyril's. How can we make Joe the rule instead of the exception? 18 months ago, we flipped the thinking to reimagine how healthcare and aged care can be delivered differently in the home. And to Ian's point this morning, made a commitment to re-architect the system in which we operate in. We embarked on a material transformation to redesign our operating model to accelerate our healthcare ambitions. Our integrated model brings together 3 critical components. Firstly, the largest home care provider to ageing Australians. We support the needs of over 58,000 and a fast-growing number of older Australians with quality aged care in the home. It also includes our wholly owned Remedy Healthcare business, a business that has been evolving for over a decade and is now a scaled national provider of targeted evidence-based healthcare services. And finally, our joint venture, Ramsay Connect, with Australia's largest private healthcare company. Our home health integrated capabilities power the at-home hospital pathways for this vast hospital network across the nation. These 3 elements come together to deliver innovative pathways across the care continuum in both home and community settings. And it's the breadth and depth of our clinical core that is the cornerstone of this integrated approach and model. There are 5 key domains that underpin our clinical core. These domains are supported by the heart of a healthcare company and the brain of a logistics company, so that we can deliver safe, quality and efficient clinical care at scale in the home. Domain 1 is where we deliver clinical services via stepped and blended models of care. This allows us to make the complex simple, where the right pathway meets the right customer to address the right needs, whether they be episodic or progressive. Regardless of funding, our customers receive an integrated experience that is care coordinated and delivers the right care at the right time, in the right place, where they choose their home to be. Domain 2, our home health operating model embraces multidisciplinary teams. What truly stands us apart is the intelligent scale we have in our workforce, a national footprint. Our clinical hubs are geographically positioned to service the density of our customers, our hospital networks and referral partners. And our clinicians are able to operate with dynamic rosters to service both our fast track out of hospital pathways and our slow track repeatable aged care services. In this way, our clinicians operate across funding streams and clinical presentations, offering practice, diversity, and an attractive place to work. And that leads me to Domain 3, culture matters. We have invested in clinical education and governance structures to foster the heart of our integrated healthcare company. Our fast-growing specialist team is now more than 500 clinicians, and they deliver more than 400,000 episodes of quality care face-to-face and almost 400,000 virtual healthcare interactions every year across this nation. This specialist team, when combined with our workforce of 4,000 dedicated carers, positions us really well to reach many more Australians with quality integrated care at home. Domain 4 is where our integrated hybrid care solutions support our customers across the care continuum. We think deeply about the forecast chronic disease burden that an ageing population will present over the next decade. And our clinical innovation team, another huge investment for our organisation, are prototyping new hybrid models and ways of working to target these complex chronic disease needs. And finally, go fast or go home, as they say. Domain 5 means that we can deliver lean, fail-fast approaches to the development of our models of care. This takes an adaptive leadership approach across our business to work with our customers and our partners, of which are many and varied, through proof of concept models, and we need to have the confidence to drive true innovation at scale if we are to make a difference. And all of which, of course, need to demonstrate evidence-based and outcomes-led healthcare. And why? Because what we do matters as an organisation, as a sector, as a group of people committed to the future of this country when it comes to healthcare. And it's why we do what we do at Australian Unity, to enable real well-being and to have a lasting impact on the communities that we serve. Australian Unity's community and social value framework was created 4 years ago as a way to articulate and put a financial value on the contribution Australian Unity is making. Last year, Home Health's contribution was $815 million to the group's overall community and social value of just over $2 billion. These home health services help to build strong communities and lifelong wellness as they enable older Australians to age in the home. They contribute to hospital bed days avoided, benefiting the individual and the system at large, which we have heard so much talk about this morning. This is what stands us apart, and this is our reason for being. Thank you.
Lovely, thanks, Emma. And thank you to all the speakers this morning. I think certainly we've got some great insights coming through in terms of opportunities ahead. So a very warm good afternoon to everyone, and it's delightful to see so many friendly faces today. Each year we come back, I always describe it to Chris, it's like a family wedding, you know, all the cousins that you only see once a year, so it's been fabulous to reconnect with everyone. And Chris, you give us a lot to think about. You're very provocative in the statements that you put out there, but I think increasingly as we work through the presentations, there is a lot to be optimistic about as we see the great things that many organisations are doing. So as I was preparing for today, I reflected on my 15 years in the sector, and I remember back to the 2011 Productivity Commission, the Royal Commission, COVID, and here we are again on the cusp of significant change that we're leading into around the New Aged Care Act, the quality standards, new funding models. And it's the knowledge, the leadership, the resilience in this room that's going to lead us forward again as we adapt and reset the business models of the organisations we look after and we look forward for. And I think today I wanted to share a little bit about Ampler Health's journey as part of that transition in the sector and how we might be thinking about some of these really knotty problems a little bit differently. The traditional approach that we've had in our sector has got some fundamental building blocks in it, and I think open for us to think about how we might challenge these moving forward. We've thought about clinical services as a sector in very much that own and operate mindset, and we've felt that we need to own the workforce, we need to own the assets, and we need to continue to build models that way. We've thought about a predominantly personal care workforce, and our registered nurses used sparingly given their critical shortages for key escalations. But as many have spoken about this morning, in terms of a physical workforce, we simply don't have the capacity to meet all of the need going forward. Similarly, in our accommodation models, we've heard about the hospital bed shortages, the ramping and congestion inside emergency departments, residential aged care homes at near 100% occupancy, and then what that looks like in terms of retirement villages, as we understand people preferring an option where they have more flexibility and choice. And similarly then with the family home, and both in retirement living and in the family home, what that can look like as higher and higher levels of support at home and home care packages are introduced. These supply constraints are not shifting significantly, so how might we think about the solutions differently? I joined Ampler Health just on 9 months ago as the Chief Commercial Officer, and I think someone made the comment this morning, shifting from health to aged care to health. I thought I was all over it. I very much wasn't. So it's been a fascinating journey over that 9 months, learning about new models of care and new models of delivery that can make a fundamental shift in how a person receives care and their ability to choose where they receive that care. Ampler Health is the health services division of Medibank. We're a business of acquisition which commenced in about 2018 with the acquisitions of HealthStrong and HSS, which were both nursing and allied health businesses. About 18 months ago, the organisation brought together all of its health service delivery functions and the related JVs, and a new brand identity was born, which is Ampler Health. In sharing a little bit about what our mission is and what we're trying to achieve as an organisation, our purpose is to accelerate the transition of healthcare away from the traditional models that are not serving us now and certainly won't serve us in the future, towards clinical services that are delivered closer to a person's home, whether that be in their family home, whether that be in their retirement living unit, whether it be in residential aged care. We're able to support clinical delivery across that continuum. We have what you would describe as a network orchestrated business model, so we don't feel that we need to own and employ all parts of the model. We actually specialise more in key JVs and partnerships and bring those capabilities together. And I'll talk a little bit more about our clinical and medical workforce in our continuum model. In the accommodation space, we are innovating significantly around those options for where care might be delivered. So in the hospital space, we JV on short stay surgical and mental health hospitals. So this is about catalysing change in hospital models of care, which are much more about putting the person at the centre, short stay models, and no out-of-pocket cost models. Another key area of innovation for us is around our Medi-Hotel models. So some of you may be aware of the example in Adelaide where we are partnering with the Pullman Hotel for 24 of their rooms to take those individuals who've been described this morning as chronically bed blocking in the hospitals, awaiting care. Now in Adelaide, 24 of those individuals are able to go into a supported environment in a hotel where all of our clinical and medical governance is wrapped around them. These are individuals who might be trapped in that hospital setting for 6 to 12 months, if you can possibly imagine that. And every state in Australia has upwards of 200 people trapped in hospitals awaiting access into resi aged care. I'm also interested to see, Cam, you might need another part of your diagram, how Medi-Hotels are starting to emerge as a category of accommodation in their own right. Increasingly, people looking for options outside of the traditional resi aged care and assisted living for what those short-term or short-stay options might be, where intensive clinical support can be provided to enable that person to go back to their own home. Our workforce is comprised of clinical and medical capability. So we have about 1,750 clinical and medical staff. Across that, there's about 900 GPs, which are working out of our 106 GP clinics across the country, a portfolio led by Cam Holland, who'll be chatting to us tomorrow morning. And that's a capability that we are delivering bricks and mortar GP consultations, as well as developing virtual GP consultations, about 700 nurses, a strong allied health workforce. But most critically for us is that in the FY24 financial year, we delivered 2.3 million health interactions virtually. And so the Amplar model is very much around saying we accept that physical face-to-face delivery has significant constraints, but how might we better utilise that workforce, and how might we support people to still get access to those services, but through either video conference or telehealth. Obviously, the services can be delivered a lot more effectively. Accessibility, so the wait times to see, whether it's GP, nursing, or other specialisations, is much shorter, particularly if you're in a regional, rural or remote area. It's much more cost effective in terms of utilisation. So, these are obviously very scarce resources in our system, so making sure that they're fully utilised is critical. And importantly, from an EVP perspective, it allows these individuals to spend more of their time practicing at the top of their scope of practice. So doing the things that they were trained to do, doing the things that they enjoy to do. And we're embedding a lot of automation in terms of the prescribing of notes, the prescribing of letters to specialists, and what that looks like in terms of e-prescriptions, bringing those capabilities in to make sure that that workforce is really well utilised, and we can continue to support really high levels of high quality care to more people through those virtual mechanisms. We offer a continuum of services, so very much around starting from that prevention and self-care perspective. So I think Tom made the comment this morning, we need to shift the conversation around how we think about ageing in this country and why prevention is fundamental. And Phil Usher, Chris and I are having a bit of a chat about that this afternoon after lunch, just as a bit of a plug for our session on prevention. Community care, we obviously have on-road nurses as well, on-road allied health, the primary care through our GP practices, home hospitals, so this is the model I'm going to unpack in just a moment in terms of the services that we're providing with very high levels of acuity, and then our bricks and mortar hospitals through the JVs. Critically though, where we see the magic is how you join these dots together. And it's through using the data and the digital capabilities that we are able to start to anticipate what the next best health action is for somebody. So this is critically moving healthcare from a reactive model to a proactive model. and it's about how we ingest people's data, always consented, in a way that can start to help identify their key risk factors and start making those prompts to people much earlier in the process so they don't end up with the health events. And we believe that this utilisation of the data and the digital capabilities are essential to supporting people to self-care, self-monitor and self-manage. Moving then into our home health capability. This is about, our home hospital capability. This is about really the model that we are delivering on behalf of South Australia Health. And I just wanted to do a bit of a deep dive into this one today. It's a model where we work with a variety of referral pathways. So you can see everything from in Adelaide just recently, we now have the capability to accept referrals through from registered nurses in residential aged care. Hospitals can make referrals, urgent care centres, right the way through to ambulances. So we've become a key capability that sits in those referral pathways. And both from the point of view of how do we stop people ending up in an ED. So as many of you operating residential aged care will know, that the transition for a resident into ambulance into an ED, possibly ramping for several hours into a congested ED, what that looks like, blows out their length of stay, they decondition a lot. It's actually quite a difficult experience for people. This model is about stopping that happening. So we might be able to intervene and bring those high acuity supports into the residential aged care home and prevent that admission into the ED occurring. Similarly, on the other side, it's about how we can support to get people out of a hospital setting and back into their own home quicker. So this is about how, where clinically appropriate, that person is discharged out of the hospital into our care and we're able to support them with their key needs going forward. We run that virtual command centre, as Chris mentioned this morning, having had a look at it. So high acuity capability that's around supporting the referrals and managing the care. It's where we're able to deliver the virtual rounds and ensure that there is constant review of those individuals in their home. We send them home with this big orange box, this kit, and that's all the virtual monitoring that they will need. But those kits are all set up for the individual based on their particular health needs, and that information is feeding into the virtual command centre. And then in terms of the virtual service delivery, so it may be that there are engagements around the specialists through a virtual consult, but equally we also have an on-the-road capability that's able to attend that person's home if that is required. These are great models and great examples because I think they show the impact that we can have when we talk about taking pressure off the health system, thinking about models differently, rather than anticipating that we need to build a new hospital every month, how significantly short of resi aged care beds we might be, or even the pressure and the wait lists on home care. We've got to find ways to take pressure off the system so that resources can be focused on the highest priority need. So just to give an example in terms of the Adelaide model, in FY24, there were about 7,000 patients who were assisted. So we have capacity in that particular location to support about 100 patients a day through that virtual model. The average length of stay is about 4 days in terms of managing through the acuity and being able to set that person back up in their own home. And looking to save around 30,000 hospital bed days because of the capability that exists. So a bit of an example today to share with everybody in terms of reason for that optimism and how we might think about different partnerships, different ways that we work across the health and aged care system to ensure that people are receiving the right level of care in the right setting and returning to good health as soon as possible. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you very much, both of you, for those presentations. So I hope it gives everybody an insight into things that are occurring out in the community that we may not have previously been aware. We've only got about 5 minutes that we can actually discuss these things. So Emma, one of the things that struck me in the conversation is that you said you go across funding streams. So most people in the room here are doing home care, let's say. They have one funding stream, and that's their horizon. The concept of having to manage many horizons would be complex. So can you talk us through what that can look like?
Thanks, Chris. And it may sound complex from the outside. The fact that we can be agnostic from a workforce capability perspective means that we have intelligent scale in our workforce. So it means that we can appropriately, proportionately and dynamically meet the needs of really broad reaching customer cohorts. And most importantly, the insight of those clinicians working agnostically across funding streams, that's exactly what our customers endure every single day. Nobody has, not an aged care customer who's in a home care package. They still have their primary healthcare journey, just like Joe. They still have their ED presentations. Our ability to work across funding streams means we can bring it all together for that individual for better outcomes and better wellbeing.
So everybody in this room saying, how do they do that? That's, it's complex just managing the cash as a home care provider. How do you do that across all those different funding streams, i.e. claim it, including from the individual, I assume?
Can't give away all our secrets, Chris. But what I will say is that 18 months ago, I go back to that statement, we flipped the thinking on how integrated healthcare is delivered in this country. And we've made a significant investment in technology platforms, akin to the, significant investment, following on from Mequicare's presentation this morning, and that has really enabled us to create a far more integrated proposition from a customer perspective rather than a funding perspective. Because if we're going to defragment the system, which everyone here has talked about, how do we do that if our systems and our operating models don't do the same?
And Bev, it's a similar question because you mentioned several times the strategy of establishing partnerships. So how do you go out and establish a partnership, and then how is that all accountable? Who's got the end responsibility for the client, for instance?
Look, it's been an interesting journey in that because it's not only in terms of commercial partnerships, obviously you're managing clinical risk through those handoffs. So in the model of care design, we've been very careful around whose accountability that is. So for example, in the hospital at home, in the home model in Adelaide, it's very clear that the patient is discharged out of the hospital and is then fully under our care. At Ampler Health, we have a clinical governance model and a medical governance model to support us being able to take that highest level of acuity safely into our care. But those are absolutely the details that need to be worked out very carefully in terms of the design of the partnership. As Emma said, always around keeping, what is the person's journey look like? And, from my perspective, understanding sort of one of the key sort of shifts for me in terms of moving from aged care into health is that you're now starting to understand, under MBS, what are people's eligibility in terms of their healthcare? What are the key eligibilities that people have under their private health insurance? So you're actually starting to look at eligibility under a number of funding options for people, and it's how you're stitching that together in a way that is seamless for the consumer as they're moving through their journey, but we're managing that complexity in the back end from a funder perspective.
Earlier today, I put forward that nearly everybody in this room will need to have a partnership with one of you or Silver Chain. You've both been experienced in traditional home care, resi care and so on, and retirement villages. Do you agree with my proposition that for people to be able to, in 5 years' time, to be able to get the services into a retirement village, Bev,
Yes.
from a normal home care provider as we know it today, will they be able to do it?
Look, I think, again, this is all about everyone working to their strengths across the ecosystem. So we don't employ personal care workers. Our model is very strictly in that clinical and medical space. And so what I think is critical is how different organisations are working together to build that continuum and make sure that as we move into the higher levels of support under support at home increasingly the frailty in resi aged care, how do we have partnerships that we know are there to support us? And that's not only in terms of, medical specialists or GPs, that's even things like registered nurses being able to support the capacity in resi aged care homes. So I think it is about us understanding how those networks need to work and how do we make sure that we're keeping those partnerships really effective.
So is that a yes?
That is a yes, Chris.
Thank you.
In fact, I would suggest that there are many partners in this room already for both our organisations. So
Emma, are you of the same view?
Absolutely agree. I think, from experience, creating that clinical core and managing that clinical core is going to become so strategically and operationally important, particularly as we think about changing requirements, about shared governance, and how we actually work with the broader system. If we are to integrate with primary and tertiary healthcare pathways to really create that seamless customer journey, having that access to clinical core and capability is going to be critical, and we acknowledge that not everybody will have that in their kit bag, and so very, very, very open to having those conversations, because at the end of the day it is about real well-being, it is about that community and social value impact, and it is about better outcomes for older Australians.
Thank you very much. Can we show our appreciation to the... Thank you, ladies.